Hey everyone, as I mentioned in my daily financial news, one of my exciting interviews today is with someone that's been doing Airbnb for more than 5 years. So I wanted to get him back on the channel and really talk about what's going on in the market. So let's welcome Kyle Stanley back to the show, host of Fearless Investor. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm good, Michael. It's been a minute, so I'm excited to reconnect with you.
Yeah, I haven't been to Fresno since early February.
Oh
So
my
yeah,
gosh, it's been that long?
yeah. I've
Wow.
actually done deals entirely remote for the first time because usually I go see everything and touch it, feel it, kick rocks. But anyways, yeah, I haven't been to Fresno in a while. so
It's
let's talk about Airbnb. Uh, in our first episode, let's remind people just about how nervous we were. I remember talking in, I don't know if it was February or March, it might have been early April, but it was like, dude, I don't know. Right, this whole first lockdown of California, that was scary. Let's remind people where we were at least mentally back then.
yeah, it was pretty terrifying to be honest. Like it was yesterday because not only did we see nine cancellations happen that day, and at that point I only had 7 or 8 Airbnbs, but I also talked to you that same day, had you on my show, and you're on here, you were given a prediction, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm telling everyone about like, oh, we're gonna lose our shirts, and so like I was scared. So it was about 2 weeks later that a friend of mine who does Airbnb in Europe posted this video saying, hey, listen, I've got 50 units that are all vacant. And the reason is because we have a shutdown over here and a travel ban, and no one is allowed to travel right now. And so he basically said, like, hey, anyone in the US, you need to turn everything that you have for Airbnb over to month rentals through like Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace and all that. And so I didn't go full in on that advice, but I went about half in, and that's where like I was solidified in knowing that I do not want to be a regular landlord
Mm.
if I ever do that, because I mean, I would bring in a property management company, I guess is what I would do.
Yeah.
But gosh, that was like 2 weeks of just being on the phones, talking to people, trying to pre-qualify people. And that's not what I'm used to with Airbnb, but it felt like at that time a must decision for the business in case we were headed to where Europe was, which was a travel ban. So
Right.
it was all really scary in March and April.
Yeah, and let's remind folks, right? Your Airbnbs, at least as I understand them, we're all in the kind of Fresno Central Valley area. It's not like you have
Yep.
stuff in the beach or the mountains or
Yeah. All in Fresno or Clovis.
right. And your kind of market like January and before were traveling nurses, employees coming to Valley for work, some vacations, right? All of that. But vacation Fresno's not a beach, right?
Right.
Fresno's not skiing, right? It's not
Right.
one of those areas. So um, that's who your customer was, correct?
Yeah, I tell people all the time, Fresno is a market that you have to come to, not that you want to come to.
Ah,
Uh,
that's good.
it's true. And a good friend of mine who has about 20 or 30 in town too said the exact same thing. I was like, "Did you get that from me?" He's like, "No, I say that all the time." I'm like, "Yeah, it's true." I mean, literally, it's families, it's business people, and then every once in a while, it's the person that says like, "Hey, I'm going to go to Yosemite," and
Yeah,
Fresno is way more affordable to stay in than Yosemite is. So
got it.
it's a lot of that.
All right, so let's. So okay, we're pretty scared. I was nervous as well. I didn't know what was coming. My first health crisis as well. Um, you pivot at least
Mhm.
slightly halfway, because again you're working your network, you're seeing what's going on rest of the world, and going to Europe was a smart idea, right? Because they were a month ahead of us, right?
Yep.
They had suffered a spike about a month before us, and you pivot. So then you go, you figure out, and again you're going month to month, you're filling them up because you're just trying to survive at that point, right? You're not
Yeah.
necessarily trying to profit like you were in Airbnb. It's
E-
Kyle needs to survive to
Exactly.
the end of this.
Yeah. I just didn't want to lose money. That was the main thing. Which actually, we still were making money for month to month furnished rentals, which, that had been my thing is, hey, if Airbnb ever gets shut down, or, in the back of my mind, never was there the thought of like, oh, if there's a pandemic that hits,
Yeah.
if there's a zombie apocalypse, like, no, that never was a thought, but it happened. And so it put my plan B to the test, which was furnished rentals. And, um, just to give you an example, one of the houses that I rented out, the market rent was probably about 1,400, and I rented it out for 2,100 as a
Wow.
month to month. You know, so
Hmm.
but I will tell you this: when people are desperate to find a place, which a lot of people that time were, they'll tell you anything that you want to hear.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to fill places. So for me, being on the phones for 10 hours a day, I didn't even take the time to really think about like, okay, do I need to do a credit check on these people? Do I need to do a background check? And so I made that mistake. I learned the hard way. And we had actually 2 domestic violence issues in our
Mm.
places, and I had to kick some people out. So it was a learning experience, and it was something that I just know I don't I don't want to go down that road again.
Yeah. Well, again, you're a smart businessman. You had a plan B all along, right? Again, the
Mhm.
zombie apocalypse was a new twist, but again, you had a plan B, which is awesome. Furnished rentals. I didn't realize the discrepancy was that large, $700. 14 to 2,100. That's pretty cool. I have to look into that. So again, when did the light start to flicker? Because again, Airbnb really for the country got pretty dark. And then at some point, maybe it was the summer, it started to realize that, you know what, Airbnb is the best of the options, right? Because
Yeah,
still people aren't going to hotels, right? Everybody wants to avoid elevators, right? Touching
right.
stuff. They want to avoid common lobbies. But Americans, just the spirit, they want to travel. They want to go places. They have to do things, right? Traveling nurses still have to do that. Going to see family still has to happen.
Yep.
When did it start to flicker and you're like, you know what? Airbnb might not only be okay, but it might be really strong.
Well, as I mentioned, we transitioned about 5 of our 8 over to month, and we kept 3 as
Hmm.
regular rentals,
Hmm.
or sorry, as Airbnb rentals.
Right.
and and so my goal in that was to just do some market research and see, okay, how is this performing compared to what the Airbnbs are doing? And Michael, it was crazy. I mean, I would say this was more of a Fresno market kind of thing.
Okay.
But we did not see a drop off in occupancy. We
Yeah.
stayed strong at about 90 to 95%. We did have to reduce our rates by about 10 to 15% just to get people in,
Okay.
which was not at all a bad thing.
Hmm.
Um, but I just, by May, I was just like, you know what? I think it's time to start turning everything back into Airbnbs.
Interesting.
And so I had already prepped all of the month to month renters, telling them, like, I'm just doing this. This might last 30 days. It might last, 3 years. I have no idea.
Right.
But at one point, you're going to get a call from me that's going to say, hey, you've got 30 days to get out.
Right.
And they all obliged, luckily for me. And so it was right around like middle of May that I was just like, we really haven't seen much of a drop off. Now, I will say, I talked to a lot of friends that I have in like, the vacation areas. And for them, it was more of like June was when they started to
Mm.
feel that everything was starting to get back to normal.
Okay.
Um, I know a guy that has 30 units over in Newport that, I mean, he just took a bath when it all happened. He went from grossing over 50 or sorry, grossing over half a million every single month
Oh,
to only
jeez.
grossing about 50,000 on April, May, and then June. Like I said, he was getting back to normal. So,
Okay.
um, but if 2 months is all that, you really get impacted, then to me, this industry can get
Yeah.
through just about anything.
Well, I think there's a couple of things in that. First and foremost, I think, again, this is our first health crisis for all of us, right? Whether you've been in the game 50 years or 5 minutes, it's the first one. So I think what you've learned in this is I think you've seen the worst case scenario. Other than
Yep.
outside government intervention and
Right.
like cease and desist things,
Right.
this is this will be the largest impact on demand, supply, fear. Um, so good news. You've tested your worst case scenario, I think. And if
I,
it's two
I
or three
think so.
months, yeah,
I think so. I mean, like you said, outside of, the city or the state coming in and being like, you can't do rentals under 30 days. I think this was absolutely the most
yeah,
impact we would have had.
yeah. And again, I'm not calling for that. I'm just trying to think of what might be the an
Right.
outside force that we can't see coming, the black swan, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, So, now as you sit here in November, did your clientele change at all? Right. We were talking traveling nurses and workers and families. Did you see a difference, or like, are there more vacationers maybe perhaps? I mean, what'd
You
you
know,
learn pre and post?
I would say, I will say this from the client perspective. We did not have much of a change in terms of who we were hosting,
Okay.
but we just saw that while before it was probably like 50% family, 30% business, and 10 to 20% of the vacationers going to
Okay.
Yosemite or LA, San Francisco. Now it was like 60-40. It was like 60% business and 40% family, and like almost no people going to Yosemite and doing the vacation stuff.
Okay.
We'll get a few trickling in now, but those are the ones that are like messaging us a week before being like, do you think it's safe to go over there? Do you think they're going to shut it down? And so they get a little bit more nervous.
Yeah.
But the number one thing I did learn is I could really get away from these 1 or 2 night stays and do more of the 5, 7, 10, 14. Mike, we have a guy that's staying for a year with us and we're not giving him a discount. And it's
Wow.
like, yeah, it's like, wow. Like I thought that if I was going to do the 14-day or more, that everyone was going to be asking for a discount. And that's just not the case. I mean, we have a 4-bedroom, 2-bath in, Fresno. I mean, off Gettysburg between Chestnut and Willow.
Oh, wow.
An okay area,
Yeah.
right? In the month of December, I'm grossing $6,300 there at a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. That house, just so you know, ARV on that is about 270. Like,
Right.
so to me, I'm like, holy cow, one person staying for 30 days and paying that much.
Yeah.
There's a market for it. And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I just didn't know that. And so with us kind of transition, that gave me the confidence to scale this, because I was like, if I don't have 20 places that have 20 turnovers all in one day, that means I can have maybe 3 or 4 turnovers on 20 places on a daily basis. And I don't have to hire this giant cleaning crew. I could have a team of 7 to 8 and be okay.
Well, cool. Let's get into this more in our second segment. The net out this first one, Eric, we were afraid earlier in the year, a couple of months in, started to recover, and you've tested plan B and you're happy with where you're at. Is that fair?
100%.
Very cool. Kyle, where can people find Fearless Investor?
On any of the podcast platforms, on YouTube, just Google search the Fearless Investor. And you can also follow me on Instagram at Fearless Kyle. Our website is fearlesskyle.com.
Very cool, man. Thank you very much for your time. I look forward to episode number 2.
Thank you.